And 3, 2, 1 on Facebook. See if it goes. 1 second. Share it on your on the page you manage. World Hindu Council. 3, 2, 1, go. Preparing.
I'm looking for the video here once it shows up live.
I'm going to go live now, not live yet.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go live.
Yes, I can see you live here.
Namaste Utsav. Utsav, hi, this is Ajay Shah and with me is Utsav Chakrabarty. We are live and this is Hindu Lounge episode number 4. And
Namaste Ajay bhai. Namaste.
So that we are renaming our Hindu cafe to Hindu Lounge because there is already an existing Hindu cafe and we want to make sure that we give them their own space and we claim our own. So this is now Hindu Lounge, a weekly Hindu American show that is hosted by World Hindu Council of America, VHPA, and I'm Ajay Shah. I'm the Executive Vice President for Awareness and Advocacy for VHPA, and with me is Utsav Chakrabarty, who is the Director of Awareness and Advocacy for VHPA. Utsav, welcome.
Namaste Ajay bhai, and welcome to you too. And it's a nice Sunday morning and our 4th outing.
Yeah, we have a great topic lined up today. Today's topic is one that everyone has in their mind. It's about Hindutva and what is Hindutva, and Hindutva has been defined by so many people and many of them not even Hindus. So I think what we're going to do is take a puristic view in American context and define what is Hindu Dharma, what is Hindutva, and why why it is relevant, and we talk about it today. And then we will have, this is not a topic that we can cover in one show. There are multiple. We will do multiple shows on this, and we invite our viewers to comment on Hindutva. We welcome them to chime in, and as much as possible, we'll try to incorporate their views. So that before we get started today is Mother's Day, and today's topic is also on Hindutva, Hindu Dharma. So we would like to take a minute and give our obediences and prayers to in Hindu fashion. And we always think of Devi when we talk about Mother's Day. And what we'll do today is start with one of the most important mantras in Hindu Dharma, and that is Gayatri Mantra. So let's start with a minute of chanting a Gayatri Mantra, and then when we're done, then we'll move on to the rest of the program, which has news, and then we talk about Hindutva. And as a cliffhanger, if you stay towards the end, we will talk about who is the Hindu hater of the week. I think that is a segment where everyone wants to find out who is the honoree for the week, and honoree under quotes, of course. But we will be designating Hindu hater of the week. And as we always do this week as well, we will call out and give a shout out to Hindu charity of the week as well. So all that is coming up. Let's first start with Gayatri Mantra.
Thank you, Ajay bhai. And before we start, I just wanted to add a point about our discussion that is coming up on Hindutva. You mentioned that it cannot be more than one episode long. I would say that it cannot be encompassed in any number of episodes, because it's for a 10,000-year-old religion, way of life, and philosophy. We have to continue the discussion for the next thousands of years. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. No amount of HinduLounge discussion will be the end of it. So
that is correct.
Please carry on.
Point well made. Thank you, Utsav. So here is Gayatri Mantra. So we have a very auspicious start of our program today, and let's move on to the news, Hindu news of the week. And I thought that there was a really there are two extremes of news today. One where the White House, when they did the National Day of Prayers a couple of days ago, they invited the Swaminarayan Pantha, the BAPs, to be present and say the Hindu prayers. And I thought that was a unique honor. I think only in last couple of years, Hindus have been invited to White House. And I'm really glad that, that BAPs was representing Hindu Dharma. And the BAPs pujari, or a priest, actually said the prayer at the White House. And I would like to play that for our viewers. So here is the prayer, that 2-minute prayer that the representative of BAPS, Swaminarayan Pant, said at the White House. So please take a look at it, and and when you get a chance, please send your compliments to BAPS, because they have done an amazing job in propagating, preserving Hindu Dharma in America. So here is the prayer that in the White House from BAPS. I am sorry, due to tech, I will bring that up a little later, Utsav. So in the meantime, I would like to, uh, so that I'll bring that up later. Why don't you go ahead with the second news item that we had for today, which is related to um, Minnesota and Minneapolis, things that are happening over there.
Thank you, Ajay Bhai. It was a very good news to hear that the Swaminarayan Sansthan was invited to the White House. So I look forward to the clip that you are going to present. But going forward, there was a not so good development in the news section, and that is the St. Paul's City Council came up with anti-India with a strong connotation of Hindu hate resolution that they brought and presented to the city council for adoption. Now, I want to make it clear to everybody that St. Paul, Minnesota is the state for the Islamist congresswoman that we have in the House, Ilhan Omar. So I guess people can find some correlation behind how and why and who are the people in the city council in St. Paul who could have been instrumental in bringing the anti-Hindu, anti-India resolution. Ilhan Omar comes from the 5th Congressional District in Minnesota. So I'm saying this is a bad news because this is something that is coming up again and again. And it is something that should worry Hindu Americans because over the past many months, as the geopolitical conditions in the Indian subcontinent has become a little bit more volatile, there have been concerted efforts by many members of radical communities in America to target Hindu Americans. And when they haven't succeeded at the higher levels, at the level of the State Department, at the level of the White House, at the level of the Capitol Hill, where many times their propaganda falls flat because people are more informed, they try to bring it surreptitiously in areas and city councils and at the lowermost level where average Americans are not aware about the ground realities and can be swayed with certain amount of inputs and persuasions in these smaller districts. And that's why these things are coming up again and again. This was not the first one, but this is really worrisome and it promotes hatred against the Hindu community.
And it is really concerning because it started with the similar resolution in Seattle, and now it is in Minneapolis. And really, these are very well-funded groups that are using their funds to fan the anti-Hindu, Hindu-phobic mania across the country. And the sooner the Hindus realize and band together in every city and go to the city councils and approach their and make their make their points, make their case heard, this is going to have a really bad implication on Hindus in America. They have to canvass their local municipal councilors or city councilors. They have to be there at the hearings. And Hindus are professionals. They have their day jobs. They are working, but looking at the future of Hindus in America and Hindu children in America, if the Hindus of today don't stand up for this Hindu rights and don't stand up against Hindu phobia, generations to come will pay the price. So I think we have to be really vigilant as a community and take this on head on.
Correct. And I must add that if our viewers go to the Facebook page, either the Facebook account or the Facebook page of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA, we have a appeal there from Hindu American Foundation. And this is specifically for residents in the United States. They should reach out, sign that petition and let the city council members know why and how we need to we need to educate people on the lies being spread against both Hindu Americans as well as against the Hindus living in the Indian subcontinent. So I would request everybody to go down 2 messages. I think it's down 2 messages on our Facebook page and Facebook account. And
Thank you,
take a
Utsav.
look.
Thank you. And here we go with the BAPS. Sorry for the initial technical difficulties, but here we are. And this is from the White House and the BAPS presentation at the National Day of Prayers. So what a wonderful way to start our introduction to Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, and specifically Hindutva in American context. And no discussion of Hindutva can begin in abstract. Hindutva is essence of Hindu Dharma, as we'll come to it. But let's start by defining what is Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma. So we call Hindu as Hindu Dharma. It's not an ism, right? Ism is a specific, refers generally to a specific way of worship, a specific a founder, a specific book. All of these things go into a ism. Hindu, on the other hand, is dharma. And Utsav, so the first question I have for you is, how do you distinguish between dharma and ism?
Thank you, Ajay, and this is, as I said, this is going to be a generational discussion, and I would add my 2 cents to it. So, first of all, the way I look at dharma, the word dharma, it's one of the things that is a non-translatable in the English language, because there is no equivalent to the word dharma in English language. Because I would have to say that part of the reason is because most of the English language that we know it today developed in the post-Christianization period of Europe. So the word religion is often substituted. The word ism is often foisted upon Hindus, but it is none. It's neither just a religion, nor it is an ism. It is, the word Hindu Dharma is a far more encompassing definition. And that definition is something that covers not just the philosophy, the theology, the soteriology, the epistemology. It also covers a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility, a sense of culture, a sense of, so it combines the philosophy, science, religion, as the Western word religion comes into play. And on top of that, it combines a sense of duty, culture, and timelessness. So the word dharma, in my understanding, is a far more encompassing word, and there is really no equivalent word in English to define it.
Right. And one of the meanings of dharma is that which sustains you. So it's really a guide to your life. It is you're sustained, it nourishes you, it sustains you by nourishing your soul and nourishing your thinking and all that. It's also Sanatana, and Sanatana means eternal. And eternal means it has always been there. The rishis of the past discovered certain eternal truths, certain laws that people should be living by. And that is the eternalness of Hindu Dharma. So it is something that was always there. It is something that will always be there. It is perpetually renewed. And it's always universal. There's nothing that says, there's nothing specific about Hindu Dharma that, that ties it down to a particular period of time, a particular geography, or particular race or ethnicity or people or any of that. These are universal truths. And just as much as the sun comes out in the east every morning and sets in the west every day, that is what Hindu Dharma is. I think the interesting part is, and that is enshrined in the oldest of the Hindu scriptures, right? And if you go back to Rig Veda, and there is, in Rig Veda it says, Ekam Sata Vipraha Bahudha Vadanti. The truth is one, but the sages call it by different names. So what it means is that there is one eternal truth, there's one God, one Brahman, and all the sages look at it and perceive it in different ways. That is the kind of spiritual freedom that Hindu Dharma offers, right?
Correct. And I mean, going back to the definition, the way you explained Sanatana, I mean, the way Hindu Dharma evolved, and it is a continuous process, it's in a continuous process of evolution. That is because it is Sanatana. So there is nothing in this universe that is always constant. There is always change. And that's why Sanatana Hindu Dharma has always been in the process of evolution. And one of the reasons it has been able to do so is also because it is not history centric. The existence of the Dharma is not dependent on an individual's acts or miracles in a certain point of time in history, which is very, very unique and probably unparalleled in any other quote unquote religion of the world. I mean, if you look at other religions, you take 1 year away or 1 day away or 1 week away from the history of humanity, and then the entire religion ceases to exist, because everything that comes into that religion happened in that specific point of time in history, either through revelation or through however, But on the other hand, in terms of Hindu Dharma, it is eternal. It is Sanatan. It really is not dependent on individuals and specific times in history. So you're absolutely right. And that is why it is so, the Vedas and the Upanishads are so universal in the way they look at people, places, time, existence, and matter itself.
Right. And then a couple of Veda Vyakyas, so a couple of things of Vedas and Upanishads. One of them says, this is mine, that is his, say the small-minded. The wise believe that the entire world is a family. That's the entire statement for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the entire universe, all creation. And it doesn't even say humans, it's all creation is one family. The other one of these Veda Vakyas is, let noble thoughts come from all directions, right? So we are not saying let the noble thoughts come from a particular region, a particular place, a particular time. And so when you look at all of this, the word Hindu has a very broad definition. So if you look at the way the word Hindu has been defined, the Hindus are all those who believe, practice, or respect the spiritual and religious principles and practices having roots in Bharat, in India, because that is where all these ideas about universalities originated from. And thus the Hindus include all the Vedic traditions, which may include Jains and Buddhists and Sikhs and all of that. And also, in fact, people who are born and brought up in India who follow the Hindu culture. Even though they may practice some other religion, it may include all the sects, races, ethnicities, it has no such thing as caste and creed. It is all encompassing, because that is what the essence of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and Ekam Sata Vipraha Badha Vadanti means.
Correct. And again, you mentioned the word Bharat and also mentioned the word India. As I had mentioned in one of our previous Hindu Lounge discussion, this India that we are discussing is not the geographic entity of what is India we know today. It's a civilizational entity that is a corollary for the birth and practice of Hindu Dharma itself. And that civilizational entity, goes all the way from the Black Sea all the way to the Sea of Socotra and Indonesia. So we actually, if you really go back to the history of how Hindu Dharma developed, you will find that there is a significant continuity from all that is in the West, in the Black Sea, all the way to the Sea of Banda, which is right near Papua New Guinea and Australia. So that civilizational continuity may have been eroded in places, and the people there may have lost the memory of Sanatan Dharma, but historically it is there, and it just you remove the top of the surface and it comes up in those. So it's not just the geographic entity that we call India today. That is the Bharat that Hindu Dharma talks about.
And it's in many levels, it's a very personal journey, right? Because if you look at the 4 pillars in some ways, with the Dharma, Moksha, Artha, Kam, it's a very personal journey for people, correct?
Correct. And many people, nowadays the symbol swastika is a very controversial symbol, thanks to the post-industrial revolution, Western European history. But the four legs of swastika literally meant the interconnectivity between dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And it is something very unique, and it goes back thousands of years, and it's so integral to the way Hindu Dharma evolved and Hindu Dharma is practiced.
So for people who are not versed in Sanskrit or Hindi or one of the Indian languages, why don't you define what is dharma, what is moksha, artha, and kama?
Okay, so again, we discussed dharma as a practice. It's the sense of responsibility, the sense of duty, the sense of righteousness that an individual follows. And this comes down to the level of the self, because everything begins with the self, the soul. Artha is obviously the worldly pursuit of anything that sustains the body, anything that is material. And kama is procreation. It's intrinsic to any evolution, is the process of procreation. And obviously moksha is the ultimate goal in Hindu Dharma, for which we have the 4 at least presently acknowledged, the 4 yogas through which to achieve moksha is the salvation. I'm using English words that don't exactly mean what moksha means, but comes close in the way I can speak. So the salvation of the soul, or the Atman. Again, Atman and soul are not the same thing. Salvation and moksha are not the same thing. These are intranslatable words. But so these are the four legs that are interconnected in the journey of the soul to becoming ultimate with the Paramatman or the Parameshwar, depending on which Hindu philosophy you believe in. So that's what combines together to form the practice of Hindu Dharma.
So we know that Hindu Dharma originated along the banks of river Saraswati. And that river is now underground. It doesn't exist overground, but there's enough archaeological and geological evidence that the river was there. At some point in time, the river ceased being on surface on the ground river. But the land of Hindus, even though the ideas were formed on the banks of river Saraswati, and later the Puranas were written on the banks of Ganga, the other river in India, auspicious river in India. If you really look at the land of Hindus, it's much broader. Just the ideas originated on the banks of river Saraswati and on the banks of river Ganga. But today, if you look at Hindu dharma, I mean, the way Hindu dharma spread, not just where it is today, but and with people in Hindu diaspora like us residing in US, but even thousands of years ago, Hindu dharma spread all over Asia, all other parts of the world. In fact, the largest Hindu mandir is not even in India. It is in Cambodia, right? It's Angkor Wat, and it is in Cambodia, and it spread in one way or the other. Hindu dharma spread all over the world.
Correct. And I mean, the as it's an evolutionary religion, it's evolutionary dharma. So the river valleys were the fertile lands that gave birth to the ideas that eventually formed the basis of the Hindu philosophy. But I have to say that whether it is the river Saraswati, whether it is the river Ganga, or the Sapta Sindhus, as many of the early Hindu Shastras talk about, the 7 rivers of the western part of the Indian subcontinent, including the river Sindhu. We do find a lot of Hindu philosophical work being done that was done in further up northwest of the Indian subcontinent, up the Hindu Kush mountain, in what is present day Transoxania, Western Afghanistan, further up the Silk Route. So, I mean, there are historians who believe that the river, the Caspian Sea is, the word Caspian comes from the original Sanskrit word Kashyap. So there are enough evidences, and I mean, there are places in southern Russia where you still find artifacts of Vishnu being dug up from the ground. So I personally believe that this evolution of the Hindu Dharma, and I mean, for people who study the Middle East in our audience, they should look up the word Mitanni, the Mitanni Empire of Syria. So there is a continuity of thousands of years, all the way. That's why I mentioned all the way from the Black Sea to the Banda Sea in Indonesia. And in this continuity, the ideas of Sanatana Dharma developed. Obviously, it thrived the most in what is today Indian subcontinent, and in many places it has been lost. But it needs to be looked into, and it's something that we should be proud of. It's something that gives us our identity. It's a much bigger identity than many Hindus in the world today believe their identity to be. And that is very important, because we are doing a great disservice to the Dharma by confining ourselves to what it is.
And that is absolutely true. In fact, Mitanni's the empire actually had relations with pharaohs of Egypt, and this is part of documented history. The names have been documented, and those who are interested should definitely look it up. Let's now define the word word tattva. Tattva is a Sanskrit word, of course, and it means principles or reality or truth or element. So tattva is really an aspect of reality, right? So when we, just in its purest form, tattva means the thatness. So that which it is thatness is tattva, or it is the element or the essence of something is tattva, right? So now we can say, okay, now if that is the case, then what is Hindutva? So Hindutva is nothing but combining the words Hindu and Tattva in its purest form, right?
Well, it is, semantically speaking, it is very simple, and anybody who understands Sanskrit or any other Indo-European language will understand what Hindutva is. It's the essence of Hindu Dharma. It literally is that simple. And whatever may be the layers of geopolitical, social, economic connotations that have been added to it in the past, post-colonial era, in its simplest form, Hindutva is basically the essence of Hindu Dharma.
And Supreme Court of India, in a ruling in a ruling in 1995, actually defined the word Hindutva. It said that the Supreme Court of India said ordinarily Hindutva is understood as a way of life or a state of mind as is, and is not to be equated or understood as religious fundamentalism. It is fallacy and an error of law to proceed on the assumption that the use of word Hindutva or Hinduism per se depicts an attitude that is hostile to all persons practicing any religion other than Hindu religion. Now, we take some objection to the word religion, but rest of it, we would call it dharma. But rest of it is very meaningful that this is something that was actually litigated, and the Supreme Court of India said Hindutva has a specific, has a specific positive connotation. It is not a negative term.
Well, I mean, you mentioned in the Supreme Court ruling, that Hindutva is often described as a form of religious fundamentalism. Now, if I look into the word fundamentalism, I have no problems with Hindu fundamentalism. If my fundamentals, if the fundamentals of Hindu dharma are not anti anybody else, it is all encompassing, it's the entire universe is one family. I would rather have a world full of Hindu fundamentalists rather than have a world full of fundamentalists of some other religion that is exclusivist and has a othering of other religions. So I have no problem with, even if somebody equates, the Supreme Court doesn't, but even if in its worst interpretation, somebody equates Hindu dharma with Hindu fundamentalism is pretty benign and actually does a great service to humanity and other forms of creation, including animals. So I have no problem with Hindu fundamentalism. It makes the world a better place.
It's a way of accepting people who have diversity in terms of not just their being, but diversity in thoughts, diversity in action, diversity in way of life, diversity in every aspect that you can imagine. And if you were to vehemently believe in accepting other people as they are, then you may become a Hindu fundamentalist. Let's reserve that discussion on fundamentalism for some other time. Let's look at the origin of the word Hindutva. And actually, you hail from Bengal, and the word Hindutva first appeared in the novel Anandmat, right?
Correct. And it appears in the famous novel Anandmat by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. For those who are from India or who are from the Indian subcontinent, they would know him as somebody who was a very famous author. He was a anti-colonial activist, an inspiration to the people of Bengal, who in those days were coming together to fight against European imperialism. And in the book itself and through his work, he actually deals with not just European imperialism, but also other forms of imperialism that had conquered India before the Europeans came. So Anandmat is very interesting as a book, and I would encourage people to read it. And in that, I think the word Hindutva first finds its place as we know it today. I mean, most historians today would acknowledge that it comes from the book Anandmat.
And this is in 1800s. It is not a present day invention. The word is not a present day invention. And it actually, through 1800s, there were other users, other great leaders of Bharat used the word Hindutva, correct?
That's correct. And I think it found more and more resonance amongst Hindus who began to see the world as Hindus again, because they had gone through a phase of imperial conquest that broke them down for hundreds of years, and they were coming out of this phase, and in the 1800s saw this revival and this identity of what it means to be Hindu, and that's where the word Hindutva finds its meaning.
Right. And great leaders like Lokmanya Tilak also used the word Hindutva in very early 1900s.
Correct.
So, yeah. Utsav, I would say that Hindutva is the quest for Hindus to better ourselves, to follow dharma in all aspects of our lives. It is acceptance of everyone regardless of their perceived differences. It is standing up for justice as Shri Krishna directed Arjun to do. That, do stand up for justice. Uh, you know, uh, don't accept injustice anywhere in the world. If it is a just cause, stand up for the just cause. So if you sum it all up, it is not a scriptural. It's just Hindutva is not just a scriptural concept. It's not just a philosophical concept. It's not just a cultural concept. It's not just a political concept. It's really not a concept at all. In a way, it is more than a concept. It is essentially it is the essence of being Hindu. It is the essence of Hindu way of life. It is not conservative, it is not liberal, it is not dogmatic, and it is not associated with any nationalistic ideology. It is not associated really in its purest form. Associated, it's not based on. The association is of course there because it's pertained to all the philosophies that evolved out of India, but it is not solely for people who are of Indian identity.
Correct. And I mean, I would name some famous people from the 20th century, thought leaders of the world, who would actually, they described Hindutva as we defined it today in really good terms. Like, I would urge people in our viewership here to go and read what Dr. Carl Sagan, one of the greatest astrophysicists from the 20th century, wrote about Hinduness, being Hindu, what the essence of being Hindu, which we call as Hindutva is. I would urge people in our viewership to go and read what Octavio Paz, a famous Nobel laureate, one of the great thinkers from the South American continent, talked about what Hinduness means, what being Hindu means. I would urge readers to read William Butler Yeats about what Hinduness and Hindutva mean, because these great thinkers from the 20th century actually went on record talking about what being Hindu means. Erwin Schrödinger, one of the greatest scientists from the 20th century, Yehuda Menuhin, one of the greatest musicians from the 20th century, they all talked about it. And it is good if we all look into it, and it helps us understand being Hindu.
So we are running a little short on time. I just want to close with one thought, and that is, there is no better way to define human rights than Hindutva. Okay, I mean, look at it this way: when we start this program, or when one Hindu meets another Hindu, we start with Namaskar. What does Namaskar mean? Namaskar means I see, or I bow to, first I see and then I bow to the divinity within you. So a Hindu sees divinity in every human being, because first thing we meet someone, we say, I bow, I pay respect to the divinity that is within you. Okay, we have this encompassing moral code called dharma that governs everyone, right? When it comes to rights of women, today is Mother's Day. Hindus start their prayers not by saying, by giving respect to their fathers, to a male figure or any of that. The foremost respect is given to a mother as Matru Devo Bhava. Hindus worship at the highest pedestals the Devi, the goddesses. And there's no good work, auspicious work. Like if you want to study, first thing you do is to pray to Goddess Saraswati. You pray to Ganpati, and you pray to Saraswati. So there is really not just diversity in terms of thinking, but there's diversity in who you worship. You can be a Shaivite worshipping Lord Shiva. You can God Shiva. You can be a Vaishnavite worshipping Bhagwan Vishnu. You can be worshipping all the Bhagwans. You can be worshipping the Devis. And there is really an acceptance in this mode of worship. It is these, and there's nobody who says that, well, I will only go to this temple. I will not go to this temple, right? Uh, People who are Shaivites would easily go to Tirupati Mandir, and it is not considered to be beneath them to go to Tirupati Mandir. And this diversity of worship and acceptance of all the all different modes of thinking, and I think we should do a program on how many different ways of worship Hindu Dharma allows.
Or non-worship. I mean, if there is any belief system, any dharma, any religion in the world that actually has a fully developed, when I say fully developed, means people thinking and discussing for thousands of years and developing philosophy of atheism as part of the religion itself.
The
Nastika school of thoughts. Yeah. I mean, I'm using the word atheism, which is again, Nastika doesn't translate into atheism, but I am speaking in English, so I'm trying to use words that most English speaking people would understand. So the Nastika school of thoughts, and not one, like 3 prominent school of thoughts that debated, discussed, understood, created ideas for thousands of years, and we're perfectly fine with each other's existence. So that is, so when you talk about worship, it's also worship and non-worship. So that is just amazing, and it is so much lost to the world that we don't talk about it, and we should be talking about it.
We should be. So why don't we are up against the time now, so why don't we move on to the last two segments of this show, and why don't we start with the segment that everyone I know is holding their breath for, and that is, who have we picked as the Hindu hater of the week?
Well, Ajay bhai, you usually leave it on me to give the bad news, and you being the happy person you are under any circumstances, I will take that responsibility, because you are very bad at giving bad news. You're still always laughing and always smiling, even when you're giving bad news.
Well, some of these things are so ridiculous that the only thing you can do is laugh at it.
Well, that is true. So, as much as I'm smiling, this is not good, but the Hindu hater of the week, drum rolls, is Congressman Andre Carson from Indiana. And the reason.
So what did you do to deserve that?
So the reason I pick him is because, it was sad and ironic at the same time, because Congressman Carson comes from a district in Indiana which had about 15 times more cases of COVID and more deaths from COVID than the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir in India. And yet, he, being a Muslim congressman, a convert to Islam, and one of the few Muslim congressmen in America, made it a point to target India for not, quote unquote, taking care of Jammu and Kashmir on the issue of COVID, because there were a few cases of COVID in Kashmir, and his heart lay in Kashmir. And that's how I'm quoting him here. His heart was in Kashmir.
So I don't know if it was his heart, or that's where the money for his re-election or money for his political pursuit or some other pursuit came from, because at the end of the day, all politics is based on money. And sometimes it's belief, but a lot of times it's money. We don't know if it's money or it's beliefs, right? But it's certainly misguided, to say the least. And I find it just ridiculous. And because I find it ridiculous, I would say it's really worth laughing at. I think he has, if the Congressman Carson had any credibility, he has now lost. I think nobody's going to take him seriously anymore, and neither should we. I think we now nominated him, and we have now awarded him Hindu Hater of the Week, and I think it's a legacy that he'll live with, right?
Yeah, but I still feel that his constituents need to know this, and it is important that his constituents know that at a time when they needed him the most, he was not there for them, and that's why I brought this up. And
Right.
by the way, Ajay bhai, you shaved this week, so I all through this conversation I'm like, Ajay bhai looks different. So yeah, you shaved this week
Yeah,
and you look great. So
well, I had some family compulsion, so I had to shave. So, so the last segment of the show is Hindu Charity or Seva Act, the Seva Act of the week. And what is our Seva Act of the week?
well, I would congratulate members of the Hindu American community all over the US, especially many of my friends who are in Houston and Atlanta, who came together at this time. And when Hindu Americans and Americans generally were going through such a hard time in this crisis with so many deaths and so many people in dire need of support, the Hindu American groups came together, Seva International came together, and they sent resources and support to the really brutalized Hindu minority community in Pakistan. And I commend them for the act they did. They have been doing it for the collecting resources for the past 1 month. And it all started because there's news started coming out during the beginning of this COVID restriction that in Pakistan, the local charities were giving Hindus two options. They would support them only if they convert to Islam. And as we all know that over the past many decades, this has been a trend in Pakistan. They force their communities, the Hindu community and the other minority communities to convert to Islam. They kidnap their daughters. So this was a very bad thing to hear. And the Hindu American community came together. Seva International got its group together, and they're sending resources to Pakistan. And I hear many groups, I'm not going to name many of them because I don't know how it's going to be taken by people in Pakistan. So, but I congratulate them. And that's the Hindu Charity Act of the Week from my side.
Thank you, Utsav. Thanks for joining. This is another great show, and we look forward to next week, right? So we want to, on behalf of Utsav, I want to thank all the people who have watched this show live and who are going to watch the recording of this. I also want to let you guys know that we are now on YouTube as well. So please go to VHPA Videos, which is our YouTube channel, and you will find this uploaded today. But all the past shows are now uploaded on YouTube. So you can watch on Facebook, you can watch it on YouTube, and please share it with your friends, share it with your family. We look forward to meeting you next week. And with that, namaskar, and thank you very much.
Namaste Ajay bhai, and namaste to all our viewers. And give us your opinion, give us your thoughts, either on Facebook or on YouTube. We look forward to your thoughts. And if you have any questions for us next time, we will take them. Namaste everybody, and have a nice Sunday.
Namaste.